We are learning today that alleged Washington Navy shooter Aaron Alexis had security clearance at the Navy Yard despite a history of serious mental health problems. Could the tragedy have been prevented? Joining me now is Dr. Alan Lipman. He is the founder and president of the Center for the Study of Violence, the director of the George Washington University Medical Center, and a practicing clinical psychologist. Thank you, sir. The big question on everyone's mind is, it's clear this young man had problems. He had a history with firearms. He had sought mental health help, and yet this still happened. Should someone have seen this?
Well, you know, part of the problem here is that most people with mental illness, Simon, are not violent. Yet, on the other hand, the people, that small group of people who commit these mass shootings, they do have a serious history of mental illness. So that is the conundrum that we are caught in. So Jared Loughner and, of course, the shooter at Sandy Hook, and now this individual, all have shown histories of mental illness, but we have to be able to pluck them out from that vast group of people who are mentally ill and who are not violent, in fact, are less violent than the general population. Now, in the case of Alexis, Simon, this is a guy whose father said that he had anger management issues, whose friend said that he carried a gun with him at all times, who had at least 2 firearms convictions, one which was clearly the result of rage. He was in an argument with a neighbor about the loudness of her home and accidentally, supposedly, shot through the floor. So I would say that there is a greater likelihood that this individual should have been caught than some others. But nonetheless, you know, this is always much clearer in retrospect. There are many people who are violent who do not commit these kinds of acts.
And there are many people who get in a rage. And to be clear, our understanding is that those are arrests, not convictions, but still arrests for gun activities like that don't give a good picture here. What could have been done here? Is this something where we can, in honesty, stand back and say nothing could have been done, or could something have been done? And if so,
absolutely, something could have been done.
What could have been done?
Look, the fact of the matter is this: if we had in place universal background checks, this individual with a history of visits to the VA, I've worked in VAs before, who had gone into the VA, who had told them that he had been hearing voices, according to a former FBI deputy, would have been picked up by the universal background check, and there would have been a sufficient waiting period so that he was not the kind of individual who was filled with alcohol, carrying a gun with him at all times, and shooting through the floor of his neighbor's apartment. This is, and I realize this is controversial for people, and I support the right of law-abiding gun owners to have guns, but even Scalia in Haller says we've got to have reasonable limitations on this, and a reasonable limitation is this small group of individuals, and including felons and other people who are at risk, who need to be screened so they don't commit these horrific tragedies that we live with again and again and again.
Dr. Lipman, a lot of people have neuroses, they have a bout of blues, if you want to call it that. Maybe some people sink into depression. If they think, if some of those people think that, hey, if I go and tell my doctor about this, I might not be able to get a firearm, do you think that has a sort of chilling effect on people who need help getting the help? You understand where I'm going with this, right?
Of course I do.
So how do you balance those two things? There are plenty of people who
as a person who treats people with the blues daily, I understand the question that you're asking. Now, there's a very clear answer for it. The difference between the blues and between the kind of anxieties and neuroses that many people carry every day and the kind of psychosis that we saw in Jared Loughner and the kind of psychosis that we saw in Sung Cho, and if this person was in fact hearing voices, as was reported this morning, the information always comes out over time, perhaps the psychosis, we'll wait for the facts, that we saw in Alexis, This is the difference between night and day. This is the difference between the flu and cancer. The line is so dramatic, Simon, that there would be no difficulty distinguishing at all between these difficult but minor daily difficulties of everyday life and the severe distortions of reality that have characterized, according to a Secret Service report that looked at these comprehensively, virtually every one of these mass shootings. Most people who are mentally ill are not violent, but the people who commit these mass shootings tend to be mentally ill.
Thank you very much. We'll leave it there. Dr. Alan Lipman, we appreciate your time, sir.
It's a pleasure.